The 21st ASEAN Summit kicked off in Cambodia today with an opening ceremony hosted by the country's premier.
The leaders launched an Institute for Peace and Reconciliation and signed a landmark human rights declaration.
Leaders of the 10 Association of Southeast Asian Nations filed into the Peace Palace in the Cambodian capital Phnom Penh for the 21st ASEAN Summit meeting. At the opening ceremony, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen said ASEAN hopes to build on the progress which has been made so far. ASEAN's leaders are also expected to ensure that the 10-member grouping plays a collective role in riding out the current economic uncertainties facing the world. One such initiative to boost the bloc's competitiveness is the launch of the so-called Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. The ASEAN Summit, which comprises of Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines and Brunei, will also discuss how best to handle the dispute with China over rival claims in the South China Sea. China claims virtually the entire sea, which spans vital shipping lanes and is believed to be rich in resources. ASEAN members Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines and Brunei also claim overlapping areas. Tensions escalated this year, following complaints by the Philippines and Vietnam that China was becoming increasingly aggressive in staking its claim to the sea, including by employing bullying diplomatic tactics. An ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Phnom Penh ended in July without issuing a joint communique for the first time in the bloc's 45-year history, because of divisions over how to handle the South China Sea issue. The Philippines and Vietnam had wanted the communique to make specific reference to their disputes with China, but were thwarted by Cambodia, the host of the talks and a close ally of Beijing. In one of the major set pieces for today, ASEAN leaders signed a declaration they say will enshrine human rights protections for the grouping's 600 million people. Officials said it is a work in progress when it comes to the subject of human rights. The ASEAN Human Rights Declaration states that every person is entitled to rights and freedom without any distinction like race, gender, age, language, religion and political or other opinions. It also declares that the rights of women, children, elderly and disabled persons and migrant workers are an integral and indivisible part of human rights and fundamental freedoms. But drafts of the pact have drawn widespread criticism from human rights groups, which say it allows loopholes for governments. Yesterday, ASEAN's 10 foreign ministers, hosted by their Cambodian counterpart Ho Nam Hong, met to discuss issues concerning the region, laying the foundation for today's summit. They agreed to push forward the discussion of drafting the code of conduct on the disputed area of the South China Sea, which has become Asia's biggest potential military flashpoint. Beijing's sovereignty claim over a huge looping area has set it against Vietnam and the Philippines as the three countries race to tap possibly huge oil reserves. A police force of 10,000 has been deployed around Phnom Penh and the Peace Palace, which is the Prime Minister's office. Premier Wen Jiabao, US President Barack Obama and leaders from 6 other nations are scheduled to join their ASEAN counterparts for an expanded East Asia summit starting tomorrow.
There have been widespread protests across France this weekend against a proposed law to legalise gay marriage.
But first, in a roundup of international news, police were called to a hospital in Egypt after families of children killed in a train crash blocked officials from visiting survivors. Ben O'Rourke reports.
Grieving families and angry locals blocked officials from entering a local hospital in the village of Asyut, 300 kilometres south of Cairo, after a train smashed into a bus, killing nearly 50 school children and injuring 18 more. The crowd believed Prime Minister Hashim Kandil was visiting the hospital where many of the injured children are being treated. Some jostled people exiting the building, while others blocked a convoy of cars that lined up at the entrance and chanted, "Get out." Riot police were called in to push the jeering crowd back. At least 14 people were killed in a fire in a slum in Bangladesh's capital Dhaka today. According to firefighters, the blaze broke out in one of the houses in the slum at 3 o'clock in the morning when most people were asleep. At least 500 corrugated tin houses in the slum were burnt to the ground, and it took about 4 hours to put out the flames. The cause of the fire was not immediately known. Amnesty International has asked the Irish government to amend its laws on abortion following the death of an Indian woman after she was denied a termination. 31-year-old Savita Halappanavar died of septicemia following a miscarriage 17 weeks into her pregnancy. Activists in Ireland say the refusal by doctors to terminate the pregnancy earlier may have contributed to her death.
I think the issue is more about seeing how the alignment of the Irish law has to find its alignment with with international human rights for abortion, and which is quite clear on how the woman has access to abortion when her life is at risk.
The Indian government has raised concern over the case with Dublin, and there have been protests in Ireland and India against the Irish government. Thousands of Catholics and church leaders marched in cities across France yesterday against government plans to legalise same-sex marriage. Under the slogan, "Everyone's born from a man and a woman," protesters took to the streets of Paris, Bordeaux, Lyon, Marseille and other major towns. The organisers say the government's reforms would threaten major and dangerous upheaval by depriving children of a natural family. France's National Assembly is due to start debating the proposed law next year. It would also grant gay couples the right to adopt children. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
A rare rhino has been caught on camera in the jungles of Indonesia.
But first, in our animal wrap, a bear in Peru is enjoying its new home after being rescued from poachers. Arthur Kyola reports.
Meet Juanita, a bear cub from Peru who managed to escape the illegal pet trade. She's now calling Lima's Huachipa Zoo her home after being rescued from hunters who kept her in a cage for 10 days. Zoo officials say poachers wounded her mother, but she managed to flee with another cub while Juanita was left behind. Juanita's now being fed high-protein milk powder to regain some of the weight lost while held captive. The cub is a spectacled bear only found in South America, hundreds of which are hunted in the region. On the back of being christened Xiao Li Wu, or Little Gift, this panda cub marked his 109th day alive with a checkup at the San Diego Zoo.
It's interesting, he's very interested in his caretakers, which is a really good sign. He's very comfortable with them, very confident in their company, and seeks them out, in fact, which really bodes well for the future as far as interacting with him, for behaviors, for training, for any sort of studies that anyone wants to do with him. He seems like a very cooperative and involved patient.
The 15-week-old cub weighed just over 10 pounds and measured 25 inches long at the examination. The San Diego Zoo's giant pandas are on research loan from China as part of a long-term program studying the behavior, ecology, genetics, and conservation of wild pandas. Hidden cameras at a national park in Indonesia picked up an unusual sight. 6 endangered Javan rhino calves appeared, giving conservationists proof and hope that the species is still breeding. They are believed to be 1 to 2 years old and are also still with their mothers. They're one of the rarest animals on the planet, with only around 40 believed to be left. The Worldwide Fund is working with conservationists to protect the species and their habitat. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Raymond Yang.
And the Macau Grand Prix has ended.
Well, yes, and the race there was filled with accidents. British rider Michael Rutter made history today with his record 8th win at the Motorcycle Grand Prix, while Antonio da Costa defended his pole start to win the Formula 3 race.